Hello, I'm Pastor Andrew, and today I'm going to teach you how to wrap a cable. This is a quarter-inch stereo audio cable, and inside this cable are a series of wires. And those wires can either run in parallel with each other as two separate wires, or there can be a single core wire with another wire wrapped in a mesh pattern around it. Sometimes there are multiple individual wires running down the center of a mesh wrapped core. And so when you're looking at a cable, it's important to know that this isn't just a single piece of wire. This is multiple pieces of wires that are joined together. So we've got our ground and then two signal cables so that we can have stereo sound, a left and a right channel passing through this one cable. Because of that interior complexity, it's important that we handle these cables gently and that we use them in such a way in which they will not get twisted and bent out of shape. So I'm going to show you a number of different ways of wrapping a cable, and the first way is the wrong way. Don't do this. I'm showing you this to ensure that you know what not to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my two hands and bring them together, and you'll notice that the cable is in kind of an 8 infinity loop shape. And so I do that again, and I bring it in, and again, the cable hangs not straight and flat, but with this weird loop in it, because I'm not introducing any twist into the cable to account for the fact that it doesn't want to lie flat. The problem is that when we bring this up and lay it flat on a surface, there's going to be twists in that cable, and if I put a second cable on top of this cable, well, that pattern is going to be compressed, and those cables are going to be squished down in a way that's going to introduce kinks and wows into the cable, and those cables are going to be bent. And then if this cable is rewrapped a second time in that same way, there's going to be a whole new series of kinks that are introduced into this cable, and over time, that repeated wrapping and compression and storage for a week or two where the cables are all being pressed down in this unnatural shape for them, well, that's going to create problems, and we don't want that. So the first way of wrapping a cable that I'm going to show you that could be considered correct is a quarter twist. And so I'm going to take the cable and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but as I bring my hands together, instead of just bringing them together like this, I'm going to twist the cable so that it lays flat. And so you can see that if I twist this way, it goes out of shape that way, and if I twist this way, it eventually will go out of shape the other way and form this figure 8. We don't want that. We want the cable to lie nice and perfectly flat, and then do the same thing and bring another twist in so that each coil that I make lies perfectly in the same plane as the others. And this way, the cable hangs nice and flat, and you can see that all the wires are in shape, and when it's compressed and laid flat, there's nothing to kink. Now, ideally, you want to hang this cable on a wall on a hook, because even if there is some slight kink in the wire, there's nothing going to be compressing it from the side that's going to cause it to be pressed out of shape. But there's another problem with this method of wrapping cable. I have introduced a quarter twist in the same direction over and over again. And even though the fact that it is moved into a coil, which to some degree allows for that twisting to be taken care of, there's still the issue that this has been twisted into a corkscrew. It just doesn't look like it because the coiling hides that fact. And so there's another way to do it, in which you twist one way and then you twist the other. So the first thing I'm going to do is a normal quarter twist, so it lies flat just like I did before. But then I'm going to twist the other way and bring the cable to the inside of the coil so that the cable comes out in between the two coils that I've made, and twist so that it lays flat, and then do my normal quarter twist, followed by again twisting and laying it in on the inside so that I'm twisting the other way. And this way, as I wrap the cable, I'm wrapping the cable with a twist one way, then a twist the other way, instead of continually cranking the cable in the same direction, which can introduce its own long-term difficulties of the cable being twisted around inside itself. So this sort of alternates back and forth and keeps the cable from being too twisted in one direction. And that preserves the long-term life of the cable. The difficulty with this is that if I let this go, it's very likely that I'm going to get some knots introduced into my cable that I have to bring apart. So this is very good for the cable in terms of its long-term lifespan and storage, but when I release the cable from the coil, it's important that I take any knots out of it that have developed. And in a very long cable, that can be rather time-consuming. The final way that I'm going to show you to wrap a cable is what I refer to as a Python wrap, because I was watching a picture of a snake, and I saw that it seemed like the head of the snake, there was one coil to this side, one coil to this side, and it would alternate which side of its head it would wrap coils around on a tree. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe that's the most comfortable thing for the snake, and so maybe that's the best thing for the cable. And so I came up with this wrap. And so this is doing the normal quarter twist, and then doing the quarter twist the other way, but then transferring it to the other side of the cable. And then a quarter wrap on this side, 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 quarter wrap on this side. And lo and behold, when I did it this way, it released without any knots in it. And that way, it was easy to wrap the cables quickly and straight, and yet not, when I release this cable, have to go and undo all of the knots. And when it's a 10-foot cable or a 15-foot cable like this one, it's not that big of a deal. But when it's a 50-foot microphone cable, undoing all those knots can be a significant expense. And so in this way, we can have a cable that lies nice and flat, that if it's compressed, there's no issue, and that has that rocking back and forth of quarter twist this way, quarter twist that way, and yet at the same time doesn't have the issue of knots forming. The cable just opens up nicely, and you can see that there's no knots in it. So I'm going to show you one more time. So quarter this way, quarter that way, coming underneath so that the cable lies on the other side of my initial wrap. This side, that side, this side, that side, this side. And there you have a neatly wrapped cable that you can quickly and easily unwind, and it's not going to have any difficulties. And by practicing this, you can get nice and quick so that you can just wrap these cables quickly and efficiently, just like that. I hope that helps. Thanks.